welcome to Too Many Movies, the podcast where we discuss DVDs, Blu-rays, and even the occasional VHS tape. I'm your host, Hal, and Puff's back. Hey, Puff, you're back.
Meowdy! How's it going?
Oh, Puff, I'm going just fine. But yeah, you're back, and it's about time too. If you know the words, we must be talking about Dune.
Yeah!
So, Puff, we're back to talk about a bunch of Dune things. This is our second discussion on a bunch of Dune things. Wouldn't it have been nice if we talked about Dune Part 2 in our Part 2 discussion? I think that would have been nice.
Yeah, honestly, I'm still in mourning of the fact that I have to wait longer for a thing because CEOs just don't want to pay their actors.
Yeah, it's a real shitty situation. But despite all that, that didn't stop us from Duning the last week or so. So
yeah,
we're here to
quality
talk
Dune.
about that. Yeah, quality Dune. So, a little podcast backstory. I think we should get into it. So obviously, one of the things you originally always wanted to talk about with talking about Dune on the podcast was this Frank Herbert's Dune miniseries.
Yeah, I really love it.
Yeah. And I had never heard of this before you had told me about it. I'm like, I had no idea there was a Dune miniseries. And unbeknownst to me, one day I'm walking through Bull Moose and I go to the VHS section, and right there in front of me, they have Frank Herbert's Dune on VHS. Just one singular VHS tape. The entire series is on here. And I'm like, hey, sweet, we can watch this and we can make it an occasional VHS tape episode. And I remember you had said, like, if I could like watch it, like, just in case, before we even do like our little watch party of the Dune miniseries, which was like months after we had this conversation.
Yeah.
You had said, like, oh, if you could like watch the VHS tape just in case it's the right thing. And I'm like, you know what? That's a good point. Well, I watched it, and it started. Yeah, Frank Herbert's Dune. This is exciting. Woo! So far, this is better than the David Lynch movie. He thinks something's happening. Oh. Wow, this is so exciting. I love Dune. I wish I could see what was going on. Needless to say, it didn't look good. But you know what? This was 2 months ago. I decided to try it again just in case before we did our watch party. And so yeah, it doesn't work. This VHS tape does not work. I'm glad you told me ahead of time, like months ago, to watch this. It didn't work, so this VHS tape we're not talking about. But the good news is I went ahead and bought both Dune miniseries that we're talking about today on various DVDs. So yeah, first up we have the special edition of the Dune miniseries, Frank Herbert's Dune. It's on DVD. So yeah, I've pretty much set up everything we need to set up. Puff, let's get into the meat and potatoes about this miniseries, please. Take center stage.
How do I put it? So this series is how I initially got introduced to Dune in general. I actually watched this with my dad when I think I was like 9 or 10, and at the time I fundamentally misunderstood the themes of Dune due to it's a deconstruction of the Messiah trope, and when you're raised fundamentalist Christian, you're just like, oh, Paul's Jesus, and you don't think any you're just like, you just take everything he does at face value. But I remember just falling in love with the world and the characters, and like one of my favorite things about it was like the vibes. I think the biggest thing that stuck with me from being a kid watching it to an adult was like all the costumes and outfits, whether it's Irulan's butterfly dress, the Reverend Mother's big fucking hat, like Fade's dumbass little outfit at the end when he's fighting Paul, the fucking triangle. Like those are like the things that like really stuck with me about it through the years, because I had seen the David Lynch Dune after I watched the miniseries, and I did not like the David Lynch one nearly as much, because I literally remember turning to my dad, and I was like, Dad, if I had not seen the miniseries, I would not have known what the fuck was going on. Well, I didn't say fuck because I was like 9, but you know, if I said that, I think my dad would have like beat my ass. So I just remember like growing up watching this with like my dad, and like just, and he would also like talk about the books because he's read all of them. So he would like talk about things that were different in the books, being like, oh, you don't see the navigators, which you don't, in not at least in the first Dune, but like it was just like a good time. So I have like this thing when it comes to the Dune miniseries where it's like, I get why people obsess over the David Lynch Dune because it's so weird. But I feel like people really overlook this one, even though it's actually really solid. And it actually like won Emmys. Like it got Emmys for its special effects. It was one of the things that put the Sci-Fi Channel on the map. Oh. Like it was like back when Sci-Fi actually used to like care. Well, actually, Sci-Fi's been getting better about their content. The Chucky series is very good, but. You know, Sci-Fi was having it rough for a minute there.
Sharknado and all.
Yeah. But
yeah, I'm glad you recommended this. I'm glad I was able to watch this. Because I had never heard of this. Like I was only familiar as a Dune normie. I was more familiar with Lynch's Dune existing and people hating it, and you know the recent Villeneuve films. So I had never ever heard of this. Like I genuinely I was being genuine. Like I had no idea this existed until you brought it up.
Haha, I'm smarter than you.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. Big Dune brain.
Yeah. You know, the spice like enhances brain functions, and so you know.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and I think even I think even though I've never heard of this, like it's kind of a hard series to sell. I feel like because that David Lynch movie was like so notorious that like, you know, it might have left people like the taste of Dune like just kind of bad in people's mouths. Like just weren't willing to watch this. I mean, because like I'm looking at the various versions I have of this series, like the DVD and the VHS tape, and they're both like plastering William Hurt's name all over. And even like during the credits, like William Hurt's name was like before the title. And this is something that like really interests me about this series. The fact that like they're putting all of their marketing into the fact that they have William goddamn Hurt. And like, here's the thing, like, that just fascinates me because I'm thinking, like, really, William Hurt is your selling point for this series. Like, not that the guy's a bad actor. Like, I think he can be good. I'm just saying this is, like, one of the most random actors to, like, really, like, push forward to be like, yo, we got William Hurt up in this bitch. It's just like, holy shit, man. You've convinced me. It's like, it's just so weird. Because, like, when you go beyond that, the series is actually pretty good. Like, I liked it a lot from like what I saw. Like, yes, a lot of it is I don't want to say repetitive is like a negative thing. Like that's just what happens when it comes to adaptations. Like you're gonna recognize like similar things and similar scenes, and like yeah, there was a lot of scenes in this where I'm like, yes, I've seen this, I know what's happening because I've seen two versions of Dune beforehand. But with that said, I still think this series did some things that really separated it from the other versions that I've seen. Like, I mean, we can start off with like, one of the first things I noticed was like the very first scene of this series is the pain box scene, which is not at all how the other two start,
Well, actually, no. The Villeneuve like takes a little bit to get to the pain box, but I would still say that's around the beginning. Because it also kind of is the same pacing wise. Actually, does the Herald of the Change happen after the pain box? God, I haven't watched it in a while.
It has been a bit, because like I rewatched the Villeneuve film like a couple days after we recorded our previous episode, just because, well, that's the day like I first watched the VHS to check and see if it was good, and I'm like, well, it's not working. I might as well watch something good Dune related, so I watched the Villeneuve film again, and it's great. Like I freaking loved it. But we're not here to talk about that.
Not yet.
Not yet, Minion. Not yet. But I will say, like, I think that what I mean is like the very first scene, like after the intro starts, like after the intro goes through like the credits and stuff, it starts off and Paul and Lady Jessica are already meeting with like the Mother Reverend. Like that's like one of the very first scenes, because like we don't even see Caladan in this series.
Oh yeah, no, we don't.
Whereas like in the other versions I've seen, they start off in Caladan.
Sorry, brain was missing out, but yeah. Honestly, I think that was just a budget thing.
Yeah, no, that's the thing with this movie is like, it's not terribly visually, but you can tell they were on a tight budget, but they use that budget to their advantage. Like, very much so.
It has this absolutely beautiful, campy Y2K sci-fi vibe, and if you love that kind of Y2K futurism aesthetic, you're gonna be all over this miniseries, because even despite its budget and like the PS1 quality CGI, they utilize it very well to where it has this. It captures the space opera-ness of Dune in a way that other adaptations really haven't for me. And it's kind of why it's my favorite, even though I don't think it's the better. I don't think it's the best adaptation.
Yeah, I think that's something I noticed, like on a grand scale, is like, I feel like this is kind of taking the best aspects of the versions of Dune I've seen thus far and kind of combining them. Like you get the goofiness of the David Lynch film, and then you get the seriousness of the Villeneuve film, and this one is kind of a mixture of both, because at times it's really goofy, but at times it's also, I can take it seriously. I can take the story of Dune seriously.
Yeah.
Like that's why I consider this like better than the Lynch film, because unlike the Lynch film, like I can take this version of Dune seriously, but unlike the Villeneuve film, I can have fun with it, like poking fun at some of like the absurdities of it. Whereas I can't really do that with Villeneuve. That's not a criticism towards Villeneuve's film. Like that's a movie I'm supposed to take seriously. Whereas here, I can have fun where like I'm poking fun at it, like in a way that's like charming, like because because
like there's shit in this that I lovingly think is just so goofy, like when you see like it zooms out on Dune and then you hear the Baron Harkonnen talking and then you suddenly see his fucking face and then it just starts fading slowly into, it's like, it is so corny and cheesy, but I love it, especially with like Ian McNeice as the Baron Harkonnen. Like he's my favorite Baron Harkonnen. He's like, oh yeah, he's like maniacal, but in a cartoon villainy way, like, but not in like a bad way, as in like he can still be like super menacing. But he has, like, you can tell he has this, like, absolute joy with, like, the pain that he brings. And, like, that's just so entertaining and fun to watch.
Oh, yeah. No, the Baron Harkonnen in this series is very much, like, he's very much, like, what this series is about. Like, he's this really odd goofball at times, but like he is also very menacing, like because he's smart. Like you were saying in the last episode, like the Baron Harkonnen is a laughably goofy villain at times, but he's also incredibly smart because he's the leader of this race of people that's kind of fucked up. Like
no, he literally like the thing about him is like he's literally just hedonistic and does not give a shit. And so I don't like, while I like the Villeneuve one, I don't feel like how do I put it? He's not having enough fun.
No, definitely
not. Not for a hedonist would be having way more fun than what the Baron Harkonnen is doing in the Villeneuve Dune. And I feel like Ian McNeice strikes that nice balance.
I think so too, yeah. I will say I like Stellan Skarsgård as the Baron Harkonnen. It is kind of hard to judge him because like we didn't really get enough scenes of him in the first Villeneuve film. What we got were good, but you're right, like they're not entertainingly funny. Like, I don't know, when I think the Baron Harkonnen and he's like this fat guy just like floating around a room, like you kind of have to view that with like a sense of humor at times. Like you can have moments of seriousness where you're taking his threat seriously. Like that's what this series does really well. Like I think the Baron is like such a fascinating villain because he is very smart, but he's also wearing a thong or like that weird like like fucking S&M outfit later on in the film where like you can see like his stomach. I didn't know if that was his tit or his stomach. Like I was very confused, but like that's the joys of having this character. He's this gross fucking fatso, but like he's still able to carry out a plan that totally wrecks the Atreides. Like that's the genius of Baron Harkonnen, I'm realizing through, and I feel like this series really shows what the Harkonnen you want to see, like you personally want to see, because like the way you were describing him last episode, I'm like trying to think like, oh, how would you do that? This series does that. That's how it does it.
Exactly. Like, oh god, he is literally like the highlight of the entire series for me.
Yeah.
Like everyone does a good job. I really love the lady Jessica. I really love her actress. She does such a good job with her. Alec Newman, like he's grown on me. I still prefer Timothée Chalamet, but when I first watched it like more regularly, I was just like, wow, they made Paul like Luke Skywalker, and there's like this one line where he's like, responsibility for breakfast, lunch, and dinner or something like that, which is not in the book. And I'm just like, but Uncle Owen, I was gonna go to Takashi Station to get the power converters. like it gave off that vibe to me.
Yeah. Let's talk about Paul. Yeah, I feel like this is an important character you have to get right. And what I like about this Paul is he definitely feels the most out of all the Pauls I've seen thus far. That being Kyle MacLachlan, Timothée Chalamet, and now Alec Newman. I feel like he has a little bit more agency in the story, or at least I feel like he has more agency in the story. Again, Timothée Chalamet does a great job too. I feel like he definitely gets the whole like I'm the son of a Bene Gesserit witch and the leader of a nation, just like definitely getting like the anxiety that comes with that. He definitely gets that right. But I feel like this Paul in this series gets it right that like, like I especially love after the pain box scene, he's like really pissed at Lady Jessica. Like in previous installments, Paul doesn't say anything to Lady Jessica after he's just had like his hand like burn in like this pain box. Whereas like in this one, he's just like, what the fuck, mom? Like, geez. And he just storms out of the room. Like it's a little scene, but like, I feel like that kind of adds to this person being a person,
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Well, there's some characterizations of this Paul that I don't particularly like. For instance, like, you talk about his agency, and I think, like, there's some moments of the agency that works, but I think in some moments it seems like he's almost too capable, because he's still, like, supposed to be a young guy. So he
Yes.
has like naivety and shit like that. And I feel like there wasn't as much of that in this series. But also, like, Alec Newman doesn't, like, how do I put it? Because Paul in the books is supposed to be 15.
Yes.
Alec Newman looks like he's, like, at least in his early 20s.
Yes, definitely.
So, like, there's kind of, well, Timothée Chalamet kind of has this, like, ageless look to him. Like, he's both, like, he looks both young and, like, adult. So, like, it works. So, having the naivety with, like, Timothée Chalamet is, like, it works. Well, with Alec Newman, I don't think he could have pulled it off. So, I feel like it was kind of necessary.
Yeah, definitely. And I do feel like what maybe like kind of makes this Paul a little weaker than Timothée Chalamet for me is that his performance doesn't really keep getting better as the series goes on. It doesn't get like bad, but like there's some scenes later on in the episodes where I'm like I really would have preferred if he did like a different take on that. Like there's a scene where like he shows Lady Jessica that he has like his awareness powers now, and it's like I don't know, just like during that whole scene, it was just kind of he was like, kind of saying his lines a little weirdly that like I couldn't really take him seriously. You remember that scene?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was just kind of a weird take. I don't know. It was kind of a weird scene to begin with because like you know Dune can be a little heady at times, as we'll get into Children of Dune. But like I don't know. I feel like he could have performed that a little better, but not to say that he was bad. Like
yeah,
you know, he is my second favorite Paul thus far, which you know that's still pretty good.
Yeah, like I think for a lot of the acting in this, it's just because it's TV acting from the 2000s,
Yes,
so you can't
much.
like go into it with the expectations of like because Timothée Chalamet is such a good actor. Like
Yeah, definitely.
But I do think that how do I put it? Paul doesn't feel like he grows sometimes in this. Like he kind of just stays the same.
Yeah.
Which it works. It's fine. But like
you kind of want your main character to change over the course. So that, like, you know, you see why the story's being told. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, like I mean they do a good job regardless, but like
I will say I feel like I will say this series does have thus far my least favorite Duncan Idaho. Just cuz he doesn't really do anything. I mean, you know what? He's tied with the Lynch film. I'll say that. Like, thus far, I would say my favorite Duncan Idaho is Jason Momoa. But again, we'll talk about that when we get to that.
Yeah, like, I feel like Duncan Idaho just really gets brushed over in both of these adaptations despite getting added in later. Yeah. And especially, I feel like in regards to the miniseries, I don't think they expected to make a sequel miniseries, and that's kind of why they brushed over him. But then the other one was so successful, they were like, okay, you know what, fuck it, let's make another one.
Yeah, and that's kind of an issue because he plays a big part in the next series, but we'll get to that.
We'll get to it when we get to it.
I will say, though, I definitely liked this Princess Irulan.
Oh, yeah, she is... Honestly, like, I feel like I remember actually being low-key mad because when I originally watched the Villeneuve Dune, my context was mainly with the miniseries. Sure. So not seeing Irulan and not realizing that she played, like, not that big of a role in the book, I was like, where is she? Where's my girl? Because I loved her as a kid. I kind of had a crush on her. Like, I really loved... Like, she just, like, was, like, so cool in this one. Like, just trying to, like, figure out what her dad is doing.
Yeah, I liked that she had a bit more perspective in this one. Like, we actually got to follow along with her, as opposed to not at all in the Lynch film, where, like, but yet she's still the narrator. Like, why is she the one telling the story? Like, here it would make a lot more sense. I'm pretty sure she is, like, kind of the narrator of this series. Am I right?
Yeah, basically. At least for, like, the first couple... Or for the first book, she is. The second book, I think, it has quotes from various different like sources,
Right.
but I feel like it really works, especially because they add something where she actually meets Paul, and that really helps like cement why she's like so obsessed with Paul, like because she met him before like everything happened,
Yeah, exactly.
and why she like writes books about him and shit, like because she's just like trying to figure out like what happened to put it all down. And I just think
Yeah.
that's really like I like what they added with that. I really do.
I like the scene of Paul and Arulon like talking at that dinner party in the first episode. Like that's a
Yeah.
nice scene.
And I kind of wish they had kept that. Do you ever get that feeling when you watch things that have like different adaptations and you there's something from a previous adaptation that you really liked that you wish they had kept in the
Yes.
next adaptation? I do that for like Hunter x Hunter, and I really do that for some of the scenes of this and Dune. Like, oh my god.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to judge adaptations. Is something I've realized with this, especially with the series we've been watching like all week. Like, yes, I like this version of Dune, but I can't really say it's like I don't know if it's like that accurate.
It
But like I don't know if that's a
actually
bad thing or a good thing,
it
you know?
is
Like
it is pretty accurate. If anything, it kind of tones down on the themes a bit.
mhm.
But they don't really change anything other than Irulan.
Right.
They tend to focus really well on like important things. So while maybe like a lot of like the internal conflict within Paul over his actions causing a jihad uh isn't really there, and it's just mainly
Mhm.
kind of like following from like, how do I put it? Less of like a POV and more of like from the outside.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Like
Yeah.
like
So
it's not following a lot of the internal stuff, and
right.
a lot of like the meat and bones of like that deconstruction kind of happens in Paul's thoughts.
Right.
And I think that's part of why they struggle so hard with Messiah,
Yeah. Definitely.
which we'll get to later.
Yeah, I think
Um
what this series does though, even though it's not like very blatant with the whole like deconstruction of the Messiah, it still doesn't straight up go for the Lynch version where it's just like, no, he's the Messiah and he's
yeah,
awesome
we're gonna
and he
make it
makes it
rain.
we're gonna make it rain on the desert planet. Like, because there's no rain in this one.
Yeah.
Awesome. Um and I feel like there's like some scenes of Paul where like you as an audience member are like, oh, he's kind of a jerk like at times. Like it's not full on where like you start to hate Paul, but like you start to like get a little weirded out by like his decision making and you're like, "Oh, wait a minute. He's a character." Like, and I feel like that's a lot better. Like I'd rather a character, you know, have moments where I'm like kind of like judging him a little where I'm just like, "Oh, I don't know if I really agree with that." I'm
But I mean,
I don't know if
yeah.
I don't know if I'm making it up, but I'm pretty sure there was a scene early on where like they're like I think it's like one of the first like in the first episode where they're like looking at like the plants like in their house. And he's just like, "Oh, wouldn't Dune." I'm pretty sure he was like, "Wouldn't Dune be a lot better if it was like a lot greener or something like that?" And I feel like the series doesn't really like dive into that, but it kind of like plants the seeds of like later on of like, you know, Paul kind of not really understanding his power, you know, like and the consequences of his actions, you know.
Yeah, I feel like you kind of got that scene a little mixed up because uh the scene that they show in this one is with the Lady Jessica in the green room,
In the green room.
like in with all the or in the garden with all the plants.
Hmm.
And in that she's just like, "Oh, it's beautiful. This like let everybody be able to come into here and be able to view the plants. Like we will keep
Right.
it in steward." And when it comes to the greener thing, I think that's like, are you they talk about the terraforming in the water chamber in the Siege with Chani.
Okay, then maybe that's the scene. Yeah,
but that's like also like the goal. But that's also like the goal of the Fremen is to slowly terraform Dune into a planet that is more hospitable.
Yeah,
but
you know.
It ends up being a double-edged sword for the Fremen, as we'll find out in the later books. But we'll again get to that when we get to that. Right now, we talk about the first one.
Yeah. I will also say, like, this is also the series where, like, you were talking about in the last episode about the scene of, like, the Fremen maid, like, selling the water to like, other Fremen. And, like, when I saw that, I got really excited because I'm like, world building, finally, thank you. Like, and that's the thing, like, this is probably the first Dune adaptation where it feels like, you know, there's people on this planet. Like, there's an actual culture here. Like, because in the previous stuff that I've seen of Dune, you know, the Fremen are on the planet, but they're relegated to, like, in the caves and, like, you know, as, like, the rebellion, so to speak. Like, you know, they're kind of like that, not generic, because, like, I do like the Fremen that we've seen in Villeneuve, but, like, you know, in the Lynch film, like, you know, they were kind of like this generic, like, underground, like, rebellion.
Yeah.
But, like, you're like, where do they live? In the caves? Like, here they have, like, structures and, like, houses and stuff like that. Like, that is really cool.
Well, I mean, the Fremen aren't necessarily, like, the people who live in the cities. It is specifically to the people in, like, the sieges and shit. But
right.
But when it comes to, like, the people who live in the city, like, they are still, like, you know, it's like they still have their own stories to tell, and they do focus on, like, how scarce water is and shit like that. And especially because I think they do have the water selling scene in the Villeneuve Dune, but they don't have it where the people are, like, washing their hands and then splashing it on the floor and then they collect it up with a rag.
Yeah.
I think, and they also don't have, like, well, honestly, they changed the dinner scene in this to make room for Irulan. There was in the book, it's kind of more Paul provoking some merchants. And I don't remember the details, but it is actually pretty interesting, and I'm sad that it was cut from the Villeneuve Dune. Like, honestly, like, the more I think of the Villeneuve Dune, it's like, I get why he wanted it in theaters, but god damn it, you should have done the miniseries.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the thing with Dune, as we were realizing, like, there's a lot to Dune. And as you kept explaining, because, like, and I mean, we'll get to it with the Children of Dune miniseries, but, like, every time, like, something was happening, I would, like, turn to you, Puff, and I'm like, what's going on? And, like, you would explain, like, how it's more explained better in the book. And it's like, well, yeah, because Dune is such an enriching, and so there's just so much to the universe that, like, it is kind of hard to just, like, you know, relegated to the world of visual media, because, like, there's so much you have to do to get this onto the screen. Like, even as a miniseries, like, there were things that were, like, changed and, like, left out. Like, in the miniseries, they leave out the scene where, like, Paul and Jessica are, like, on the ship and Paul has to use the voice to, like, hypnotize the soldiers and get like helping them to escape. Like, they cut that. Like, we just cut to them out in the desert, and all of a sudden they're just, like, out in the desert. Which I feel like that would have been a great character moment. I feel like, you know, that's a moment where, like, Paul is supposed to show that, like, he's kind of learning this new ability. You know, he's not perfect at it, but, like, you know, it kind of adds a little bit of pressure because he has to do something to, like, further save them. Like, I feel like that's a great scene, but this doesn't have that.
Yeah. I also feel that way just towards, like, the whole fall of a House Atreides in general, because it actually, it's like a slow creep in the book, and it really, you get more and more anxious because because you know what's going to happen, you just don't know when. And I feel like in every adaptation it still feels kind of rushed.
Yes, definitely.
And
again,
like but it's like that's what you gotta do, what you gotta do in regards to like pacing, and a lot of the stuff that does happen doesn't overall affect the plot. It's just like more interesting character moments. A lot of it actually focuses on Yue and his like growing anxiety and guilt for betraying the Atreides. So it's like, it's not even just like you know that they're gonna betray you. It's like, you know who's betraying them.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, it's really tense, and I really like that about the book.
Yeah.
But I also don't think like there's ever gonna be another adaptation after the Villeneuve one.
I mean, yeah, it's gonna be pretty rare to see that. I mean, but that's the thing, is like, that's one thing I realized like over the past week after like Duning so hard. Like, you know, the it's difficult to really judge adaptations. Like, I'm glad you're coming at it as from the perspective of, you're a huge fan of the book, you're a huge fan of Dune, so like you are judging these as like adaptations, you're judging them as like, what did they get right, what did they get wrong? And me, I'm judging it as like, all right, what is it establishing, like as its own thing, like within a vacuum. I'm watching the Dune miniseries within a vacuum. Like, some things I'll compare because I have seen the Lynch film and the Villeneuve film, but mostly I'm judging it in a vacuum because I'm not the biggest Dune head. Like, I'm still getting things wrong. Like, that's the thing, is like, there's so much to this universe, I still get facts wrong.
It's okay, sometimes I do too. Like, like sometimes things just kind of like blur because there's like so much getting crammed into your brain. But it's like really rich and deep. And honestly, when it comes to me, I've actually started changing the way that I view adaptations because of I've been really obsessed with Hunter x Hunter for everybody on the podcast recently, and I've watched both versions of it, and watching 1999, like the stuff that they add, like that wasn't in the manga, like sometimes it was just like okay, but sometimes it like made character moments hit all that harder in ways that you couldn't really get away with in a manga because of like, well, you're doing it on tight deadlines, you only have a certain amount of pages, etc., etc. And so I kind of like, and then watching the 2011 version after watching that version 1999, where it feels like they kind of put kid gloves on the manga in some ways, I was just like, it changed my perspective on what an adaptation should do. I used to think that like if it followed it to a fault, like if it like it's fine, it's a perfect adaptation, or it like maybe occasional things for pacing or like just to make it fit better to screen. But you know, if it's how do you put it? But if it's perfectly like the book, it's perfect. And now I'm like, I think like that kind of stuff is fine, and it still would be a good adaptation regardless. I think a great adaptation is when it takes that source material and elevates it.
Yeah.
And I do think that while they don't do it in the writing way, I do feel like the miniseries and the Villeneuve movie do elevate it visually with the different vibes and interpretations that they have. So like there's like, I think the thing I love the most about all the Dune adaptations is there's a flavor of Dune for everyone.
Yes.
And so even though I don't like the Lynch one, like it's like I do appreciate its existence. Like just like, I don't know, adaptations are hard to judge because it's just like what makes a good adaptation just really depends on what they do with it, like at the end of the day.
Exactly.
But yeah, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like the movie that kind of changed my perception on adaptation was The Shining, like Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Oh
Like,
yeah, because it's like
I've said,
nothing like the book, right?
yeah, I've said before, it's nothing like the book, but like, I still love the movie because it's just a genuinely great movie. And that, not to say that like, oh, you have to be completely different, because like, at what point is it like the thing you're adapting anymore?
Yeah,
But,
like Blade Runner.
yeah, but like, does that matter? Because yeah, Blade Runner's nothing like Do You Dream of Electric Sheep, but like, it's still Blade Runner. Like, it's still
Yeah.
fucking excellent. Like, I don't know. It really just depends on what you're watching. I feel like again, like, I can't judge this miniseries as an adaptation. I can only judge it as a miniseries. And despite all that, I was still hooked. I was still intrigued with where it was going. I knew a little bit where it was going because I know the story of Dune a little bit, but like, I was still entertained nonetheless because the acting was good, the effects were creative. Like, it wasn't just CGI. Like, there was that worm puppet at one point. There was that little like stop motion mouse thing that we were so hooked on. Thought that was the coolest thing. Just the costume design in general. Can we please talk about the funny hats? Like
I was actually about to talk about the UV contact lenses for the Fremen's eyes, because what they did is they had all the Fremen wear these like reflective contact lenses, and so it gave them their eyes this ethereal blue glow to it.
Yes.
And so and depending on the lighting, and that just like, I love that. I don't know why they didn't keep that aesthetic for any other, like, even for the sequel miniseries, they stopped doing it.
They did stop doing it.
And it's like, what the hell? That was like one of the coolest effects in the entire series. Like, that is what the Fremen look like to me. Like, what do you mean I don't get my glowing blue eyes and funny hats?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think these are my favorite. This is my favorite version of the glowing blue eyes. And like, yeah, the funny hats are plentiful in this series. Like, every other scene, there was an even funnier looking hat, and there was no two hats were ever alike.
And like, honestly, like, people make fun of them. Honestly, I think they kind of serve cunt. Like, they're, oh my God, like,
they do.
Like, it's like, if you saw someone wearing it out in the wild, like, you would probably be like, oh my God, that's such a funny hat. But in like the world of it, it just adds to like the vibes. Like, this just like, I don't know how to, like, there's something about like how goofy Y2K sci-fi aesthetics were that I just adore. I just really like, I think it looks cool, even though it's like yeah, it's a little silly, but like, also like, it looks cool as shit. I don't care.
It does, yeah.
Like,
and it looks fake. Like, and that's the little issue with the CGI is like, it looks fake, but like, the design of it is still cool.
Like, I mean, honestly, like, even like when it looks fake, like when everything else looks equally as fake, it just feels like a design choice and not like a limitation. Like even if like, for like, how do I put it? You know how like, you know, like the Lake Michigan Monster and how it has its specific aesthetics and utilizes its low budget to like have a very good, solid vibe that you just don't even really notice it. I feel like Dune kind of does the same thing, where it's like, you know, it has like not the biggest budget, but it like makes everything so seamless that you don't really know, like, you don't really care. It just looks like a stylistic choice.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, it's the same reason why I've never truly hated the Star Wars prequels. I can agree the CGI in those movies are terrible, but like, at least the design of everything looks cool. Like, and it's the same thing here. Like, the design of everything is so well thought out and so cool looking that even when it looks fake, I don't really care. Like, of course it looks fake. It's CGI. Like, I'm not stupid. I know they didn't actually go to space to film Dune. Like, you know, like,
what do you mean Arrakis isn't a real planet?
I'm sorry, Puff. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you.
Next, you're gonna tell me Santa Claus isn't real.
But yeah, no, it's a really cool looking series. Like, it's just, and I feel like that's kind of that's something that it really needed to get right, and I feel like it definitely got that right, because it didn't feel like it was copying David Lynch's Dune. If anything, like, I really feel like this version of Dune, because like you ever get that feeling whenever you watch like an adaptation, like it feels like it's trying to it has that aura around it where it feels like it's trying to correct a version that previously came out. I don't feel that here. I don't feel like this version like even acknowledges the Lynch film. Like,
honestly, I feel like it kind of does, because like, for instance, like the scene with the navigator, which isn't in the book, that's something that was taken from the Dune, from the Lynch Dune. Like, its I think it's the Lynch Dune's fingerprints are there, where they took what they liked from like from the David Lynch Dune, and then built upon it in their own way. But I feel like the difference between this Dune and the Lynch Dune is, I feel like the people who at least like wrote and directed it like really, really loved Dune.
Yeah, like, I definitely get. Yeah, you definitely feel like John Harrison understands the source material more than David Lynch.
Yeah, like there's like, you can tell when like an adaptation is made by someone who loves it. Like, yes. And I feel like this Dune especially just like has that vibe.
Definitely, yeah. Is there anything else we have to say about this Dune miniseries?
I want to talk about Alia. Like, I just love her. I just love her in this series. She's just like she's still like a kid, like, and she has her like child acting, but I feel like she was less annoying.
This one at least sounds like a child.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't sound like a 40-year-old woman putting on a child's voice. Like, this one sounds like a child because they didn't dub her over. Like, yeah, it's a little unconvincing because it is a child, but like, it's not. I'd rather it be the child giving me the distracting performance than an unconvincing child actress on top of an unconvincing dub, you know?
Yeah, and honestly, when it comes to Alia at that point, she does still sound like a child. She just speaks like an adult, so she'll have like that little childish like lisp or whatever. Yeah. But she'll be talking like an adult and like making occasionally, like I remember in the book, occasionally sometimes she cracks dirty jokes and it freaks everybody out.
Yeah, which is kind of a hard thing to do to, you know, get out of a child actress. Like, no matter how good child actors are, once in a blue moon, you'll get one so convincing. But, like, again, once in a blue moon, like, it is incredibly rare of them to, like, really pull in, like, an amazing performance. I mean, you can't really expect that from someone so young and, like you just can't accept that. Like, you can't expect that. But yeah, no, what they do with Alia, I like this more than the last one. Just cause they don't do a whole ton, but like, I feel like this is like, she plays the part well in what she has to do in the first Dune book. Obviously she plays a bigger role in the later ones.
She plays a bigger role in later ones. This one, she's just kind of here being silly, but I love weird, creepy kids. Like, those are like one of my favorite tropes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like this version. Well, I don't know. You know what? Even though I know the Lynch film made up the part where like Baron Harkonnen dies from the Gom Jabbar and then he gets sucked into a worm.
Get eaten by a worm.
I kind of missed that just because that was really funny, but like
they were playing it more serious with this one though, so like I don't blame them. Yeah, and besides, he was spinning around anyways. It was funny.
Sure. Yeah. No, it was funny enough. But it ain't no worm eating, like, but different strokes for different folks. I get it.
All right. I think in regards to the mini-series, I don't have anything else to say.
Yeah.
Well, first one.
There is a lot to say, because there's a lot going on in the series, because it's a mini-series. It's like 295 minutes long.
Yeah.
But it is kind of a lot, and I've only seen it once. So, like, you know, it's hard for me to really grasp onto every little thing it does. But I'm satisfied with what I saw. I really liked it. I liked it a lot more than I was expecting. I mean, I had no idea
I was
what to
actually scared you weren't going to like it for some reason. Like the thing is, okay, you guys don't understand. I've been obsessed with this miniseries. This is probably like I think the 4th time I've watched it this year. So like
this year.
Yeah, this year I watched this miniseries a lot. Like just because it's like a comfort show. Like it's something I can put on in the background and work on things with because I'm so used to this version of the story that it's like perfect for if I'm like trying to like I need something in the background but I don't want to fully focus on it.
Right.
Like
exactly.
I've actually like and I've also started it more than 4 times. But then not finishing it because like, oh, I'm finished with what I'm working on.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so like I really love this miniseries, but I was like, oh, maybe they won't like it. Maybe it's too cheesy. Maybe they can't take it seriously. And I'm like, I don't know why I thought that because you of all people would be the person to appreciate it. Like. Yeah. But like I was like genuinely like nervous because nobody else like around me had ever seen it and my girlfriend thought it was mid, so like
well that's the frustrating thing with it is like, you know, it's not that popular of a miniseries. Sure, it was like, it won Emmys in its day and like obviously people watched it if they're going to put it on a special edition DVD and VHS, but you know
it got forgotten and I think part of it is because David Lynch Dune gets to go on streaming services while this Dune has you can watch it on YouTube. Yeah, it'll be censored and the subtitles will be in a different language when they're speaking Chicopsa, but like they literally like
it's nowhere to be found. I've tried looking for it. The fact that I found a DVD of it at Bullmoose is kind of a miracle.
Yeah, like I mean, there's like Blu-rays on Amazon, and I plan on getting them eventually for both series. Even though Children of Dune miniseries has pissed me off so bad now, but like how do I put it? I just feel like this one just people forgot about it because it's not as disastrously bad as the Lynch Dune.
Right. And it also doesn't have the prestige of the Villeneuve film. And I feel like thanks to the Villeneuve film, whether I'm sure it was unintentional, but like now that the Villeneuve film is out, I feel like people are going to remember this one even less.
Because it's like now we have a better adaptation than this one. And I don't want this one to be forgotten. I really love and treasure this series as the reason that I fell in love with Dune. And I think that it does a lot of really good things. But I think for me, if anything, I actually disagree. Like I think like it will be forgotten for a bit, but I feel like when people find it again, when people find it again, they're going to appreciate it and love it more because we have a better adaptation. That's like kind of how I feel like towards like the first Percy Jackson like Lightning Thief is I feel like people are gonna love it ironically once the Disney Plus series comes out. Like we're gonna think it's like, oh, wasn't this so silly, and we're not gonna hate it as much. We're just gonna think, oh wow, remember when? Okay, honestly though, like Percy like looking into the back of his iPod Touch to fight Medusa was like so good. I hope they keep something similar to that in the series on Disney Plus because dude, like that image is Percy Jackson to me. Like that is if I had to describe the Percy Jackson series in one image, it would be that one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But like I feel like when it comes to every like adaptation, there's always gonna be like diehard fans of a specific version, and they're going to be the ones to like keep it in the memory, and that's me. I will spread the word of the Dune miniseries to as many people as I can because god damn it, it's good. You should watch it.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot more people should be watching this. Obviously not on the occasional VHS tape that I have on it. I'm throwing this into the trash because it don't work no more. But this special edition DVD I'm keeping because like I want to watch this series again someday. Like to like, really like kind of give it a little more time to like really sink in, like, really absorb the world it's going for.
Yeah, I think you actually have the exact same special edition DVD that my dad has.
I might, yeah. It's the 3-disc DVD set from Artisan.
Yep, yeah. That's the one my dad has.
Wow, very cool.
Like, yeah, it's just really funny.
Well, to all the people listening, please find Frank Herbert's Dune somewhere, anywhere.
Please.
If you're listening to this 10 years from now and YouTube took it down or YouTube doesn't exist anymore, whichever one comes first, like, please just find it somewhere. Just watch it somewhere. Like, we can't sing this series praises enough. Like, it needs to be seen. Whether or not you actually like it, I mean, that just comes with
personal taste.
That comes with personal taste, but that's the risk of watching new things. Is like you're not always going to love things that you watch for the first time, but I'm willing to watch this again, even though I really liked it. I still want to see it again. And yeah, no, I highly recommend it. And it's another good addition to the collection for sure.
Hell yeah. I will probably end up watching it another time before this year ends, knowing my ass. Yeah. It's like I've actually recently been like, oh shit, the Villeneuve one is on Netflix. I should actually watch that Dune. And then I'm like, but Dune miniseries.
Dune miniseries, yeah. Well, I also recommend, even though we haven't talked about the Villeneuve movie,
the Villeneuve one's good. It's good.
It's good. Yeah, I recommend that one too.
It's like I think the Villeneuve is the better adaptation, but the miniseries is my favorite. I will always treasure it. Like,
yeah. Well, that's good. That's good.
Now the Children of Dune miniseries, on the other hand.
Well. So yeah, so I was very curious with both these series. I was like, I have no idea what to expect with these. You were saying the Frank Herbert's Dune was the better one. Children of Dune was fine. Like, it had its moments, but it was fine. You lied to me.
I actually think I gaslit myself. Into that, like, because I think I was just so happy that someone even attempted to adapt it, and also when I watched it, I had not read the books. So I was just like going off of a plot summary I had watched on YouTube and a dream, and so when I was watching it, I was like, man, the aesthetics really dipped, but it's fine, And then I'm watching it with you guys, and you're like, Puff, what the fuck's going on? And I'm sitting here like, after reading the book, like, bitch, I don't know what the fuck's going on either. Why are they adding all this shit with like fucking Leto the Second visions in the new metal music video? Like, like what are you doing? Why are you adding I forget her name, but Princess Irulan's sister in this early. Yeah, she's part of the conspiracy, but she doesn't play a big role until like later in the actual Children of Dune book. And you're putting her into the Dune Messiah scene, and you're getting rid of like all the scenes that like break down like the fact that Paul is like fucking losing his mind because he's realizing like the shit that he's put the universe through due to his actions, and actually doubting like the path that he's started. And it's like, no, we're just gonna like kind of give you some random clips of like the things that happen, and none of the introspection from Paul. Like, they don't explain things really well. I really hate the fact that like, dude, like fucking like the Duncan Idaho Gola. First of all, that bitch has metal eyes. Like, they didn't. I forgot about that when I was like watching the series. But I was like, I was going through a summary to like refresh my memory because I've only read through the book once. And he has metal eyes that like, so they nerfed that. They nerfed the fucking glowing UV contact lens Fremen eyes. They're just like CG'd on now. Cringe. They nerf
the funny hats.
They nerfed the funny hats. There's like outfits that Alia wears that like look like she's a Forever 21 model. Like, I like, it's like, oh my god. And then the music is such a downgrade too. Oh my god. The music, like, the thing is like, okay, listen, like Brian Tyler is fine. Like, the Mario movie soundtrack bangs, but it does not. The soundtrack that he made for Children of Dune just does not fit at all.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about that. How, like, it does not sound like a Dune soundtrack. Like if it was for like a medieval like castle film, like yeah, this would be pretty good because like that song that plays whenever they're like, you know, they have the camera flying over like the giant castle. You're just like, oh, this is pretty good. It just doesn't match.
Yeah, it does
the
not
Dune
match
aesthetic.
the vibes.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so Children of Dune. Well, first of all, that title is a fucking lie. Not only is this not an adaptation of Children of Dune, it's an adaptation of Children of Dune and Dune Messiah.
And the first episode focuses on Dune Messiah, and then the other two adapt Children of Dune.
But then it's not about the Children of Dune because it's mostly about Alia, but she's not a child anymore. But then it's also sort of about the twins of like Paul's twin daughter and son, but they're not children. They're obviously in their 20s.
Yeah,
like,
that's not
everything
the case
about this title
book.
is a lie.
Yeah, in the book, Leto the Second and Gamina are both 9, which makes things a lot more sad, especially in regards to Leto the Second. But like also just like in general, like they constantly get treated like children, but they're also like Alia in the sense that they act like adults and have adult memories and shit like that, despite being children. Yeah. Let's talk about the Dune Messiah episodes first, though, because
because they come first.
Yeah. But yeah, basically, when it comes to Dune Messiah, I don't know if I should like just give a plot summary, so I'm not going to do that. But basically, when it comes to like Dune Messiah, it basically follows like what happens after Paul becomes Emperor of the Galaxy. And basically what ends up happening is he has like this sort of religious fascism going on, where basically non-believers in Paul's like divinity basically get like killed. Like, right. And so there's like, and they like literally go to war with a bunch of different planets, and while all that's happening, like they're starting to terraform Dune, and it's causing effects on the ecological environment as well as Fremen culture, because Fremen culture starts to like die as people get more comfortable and more, what is the term? Water fat. So like, I remember there's like this part in the book where they start where there's a character who's talking about like how kids these days will be walking around with their still suits not like fully on to be more fashionable, or how like there's like cosmetics, there's like a weird thing, a fashion trend where it's like people wear still suits, but they're not like functional still suits. It's just like for aesthetics. Right, exactly. Like on other planets. And like it's like I really like when it went into the shit like that, like showing like the effects of like what Paul did onto everyone, that it wasn't like a good thing. They cut out a scene where he talks to Stilgar about human history and talks about like Paul talks about like how all the people he's killed has outnumbered even Hitler and Genghis Khan. And, like, it's like, dude, like, they cut out all these, like, interesting scenes for, like, scenes that don't even happen until the next book. Right, and you could have probably fit them in to the other episodes if you had just, like, paced things better. And my biggest issue with this whole series is it's what they did with, like, the David Lynch Dune, where they focused on all the wrong things, getting rid of the meat and bones of like what made those books so good. There is like a scene that they just completely breeze through with the trial of like one of the traitors, and like that scene goes crazy, but they cut it out. It's just like in this weird montage of like all these people getting fucking assassinated while like the happiest music is playing, like the most triumphant fucking music, and I'm just like, what the fuck is what the tone is so weird. What like I feel like Children of Dune should be like one of those like if they have like an editing class, like here's like what music can do to a scene.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like, see how, like, music can absolutely make or break a scene in terms of like its tone, like, because Jesus, it's so fucking, well, the music is so weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, what did you want to say about the Dune Messiah saga? Like,
well, so everything you're describing of like what Dune Messiah is supposed to be like sounds interesting. Like the fact that this guy who was the main character of the last series is kind of a awful person now. Like the fact that he's like this fascist, like imagine like Luke Skywalker becoming essentially the next Darth Vader. Like that's fucking terrifying. But that sounds interesting.
yeah,
But only if it's actually interesting. If the series like actually takes time to like really like show the effects that takes on one's character. And this doesn't do that at all. Like
Yeah,
I'm
it
like
really-
watching it the whole time and I'm like, I'm confused. Why does everybody hate Paul now? Like, what is happening? Like, why should I care? You know?
yeah, like it really doesn't do a good job at all. And like the whole thing with Paul, like there's like a Frank Herbert quote where he talks about how charismatic leaders are incredibly dangerous, and how he believed the most dangerous president was John F. Kennedy because he was so charismatic and likable and everybody loved him, and then we ended up in Vietnam, while the most useful president in American history was Nixon because he taught people to not trust the government. Like he's so real for that, actually. Like
Yeah.
unironically, like when you see like, I feel like Dune, and part of why I'm so obsessed with it is because it's so timely.
Yeah.
It
Very
is
much so.
It is unfortunate how it is still timely, considering that it was written in the 60s and 70s, but
Mhm.
it is timely nonetheless, and
Yeah.
it really like shows how people get swept up into fanaticism, and how we should like always question like authority and
Yeah.
not like hero worship.
Yeah. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. Like that
Yeah.
old chestnut.
Like, God, the themes of Messiah are just like so good, and I wish that I'm so mad that
Yeah.
Villeneuve isn't adapting Messiah right away. He's doing a Cleopatra movie. I saw the news and I literally checked the account to make sure it wasn't a parody one because I
Yeah.
didn't want it. I just was like, please let this be fake.
No,
I
but it's
don't-
okay. It's okay, Puff. He's making Cleopatra 2525.
Yeah, it's
That's
okay.
A good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. But like literally, because he talked about wanting to do Dune Messiah, but at
Yeah.
the same time, like at the current state of Warner Brothers, I actually kind of don't blame him.
Yeah.
It's like the knee jerk
exactly.
reaction is no Dune Messiah breaks my phone, but like, I get it, like with what's been going on over there, I honestly just don't blame him if he dips to another studio to make a different film and then comes
Yeah,
back to it
exactly.
later. Even though it breaks
Sure.
my heart, because God, I need Dune Messiah to be adapted well. I need Children of Dune to be adapted well. I'd like all
Yeah.
the Dune books to be adapted well, but I don't think God Emperor of Dune would translate very well.
No. Well, like, but that's the thing is like that. This is the series where like it was really starting to hit just how heady like Dune can be, and like how difficult it would be to make these in Vision
Yeah.
Medium. They're not impossible, but they're super improbable when you really think about it. Like, and yeah, especially Warner Brothers taking on Dune Messiah and Children of Dune. They would not do it justice at this current point. Like, absolutely
Yeah, if it
not.
was done justice, it would be canceled.
Right, exactly. Because the version we got here is probably the version we'd also get with Warner Brothers. Like,
Yeah.
you know, kind of speed running through this, you know, because like they don't want to
They don't-
upset people, but like at the same time, that's the point of Dune. It's supposed to be a little upsetting. Like,
yeah,
you know,
like, dude, like it's like I get why people, especially religious people, could get like a knee-jerk reaction from Dune because it's
sure,
kind of like, how do I put it? It's pushing against a very core belief of a lot of religious like things.
yes, very much so.
Because it's very much like a we're all human, and none of us are holy. Man should not play God. And I
Right.
feel like even in like, and when you're seeing like him as like a religious symbol and like interpreting him that way, once you get to Messiah, you get the rug swept out under you really quick, and it makes people mad. Dude, like my
Yeah.
dad talks like, even though my dad has read every single Dune book, he does not actually care for the direction that it went, because my dad's a Christian and he wanted Dune to be a Jesus allegory, when that is not the case, and if anything is very much against the kind of shit that unfortunately my dad supports. So it's like literally like, it's a very humanist story, and if you're approaching it from if you don't like recognize the fact that no, dude, the Paul is human, don't
Right.
put, the whole point is that he is a human that got pushed, like this pushed on him, and how it broke and destroyed him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
as well as
exactly.
like the universe that he existed in, like the people who idolized him. Like and it does the same to Alia, and eventually the shit that Leto does, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well, this kind of ties into, our adaptation discussion throughout the series. It's like, this kind of ties into like one of my biggest questions with this Children of Dune series specifically, and that is, why did they make it? Like, barring the whole like, oh, for money excuse, like genuinely like thinking about it, like why am I watching it? Like, what is the point? Like, besides the fact that like the first Dune series was a success, and they're like, oh, let's make the next story, and also like, barring the idea that Dune Messiah and Children of Dune exist as books, it's like, oh well, we have to make them we have to adapt them into series similar to how we did the first book. It's like, okay, barring all of that in mind, what is the point of this series? Like, why are we watching these characters? Why are we watching, like, why is this the story we're being told of these characters, like,
and
why?
It really pisses me off, because like they take out all the why. They just focus on plot beats, and it take out all of like the fucking philosophy shit, and like all of like what, like basically all the purpose for those like books existing.
Exactly.
And while the Dune miniseries feels like it has love from the people who made it, I don't get that from the Children of Dune miniseries. It feels like it was made by someone who fundamentally misunderstood the books.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, because like none of the same charm is there. Like, well, first of all, there's no funny hats.
Yeah, not really.
No. And yeah, as you were saying, like the costuming, especially on someone like Alia, like she does not look like a high-ranking official. Like, especially like in the latter two episodes, she's now like taken Paul's place as like ruler of Dune, but she does not come across as ruler of Dune. Like her costuming is so unimpressive that like I just don't really care.
Yeah, there was like one dress that she wore that looked really fucking cheap. And I was just like I can, like, don't get me wrong, like some of the material that they use for costumes in like the Dune miniseries have a kind of like cheapness to them, but they don't, like, they feel like they fit with like, because everything's so colorful and campy. Well, they make everything less colorful, and like it feels like it's a very brown series.
It is.
Well, like the Dune mini series had so much color to it. Like it had so much life, and this one like had no life at all.
No, and you know what? The effects look much worse in this one than they did in the last one. And that's because they tried to make the lighting a little more serious. So then when the CGI lions from Ice Age show up, like they look way less convincing than if, like, you know, the actual lighting matched it. Like, it's so bad, that lighting on the, like, the CGI in this, because it's a lot more obvious. And then you get when you get Leto running through the desert like fucking Roadrunner, it looks like the Flash from this year. Like, it's so bad.
And you know, the thing is, like, he actually can like fucking swim through sand. I would have liked to see that.
That sounds so funny. But like, yeah, no, like, we can't have any fun in this.
Yeah,
series,
we can't have.
apparently.
Yeah, we can't have fun.
No fun allowed.
Yeah, God, and like some of the shit like that they just do. Oh God, like one of the biggest things that pisses me off about this adaptation is fucking they make Leto and Gamina fucking incestuous in this, and it is not. And while like there is like a thing like in the book where Leto has visions that he does end up marrying his sister, the reason why he does that is actually specifically so nobody can marry into the Atreides line, forcing like basically nobody can like inch their way into power other than Leto. But Leto can't even do anything with her. And it's literally just for political reasons. Because when he turns himself into a worm by wearing the sand trout skin, he like doesn't have a penis anymore. So Ferrodin is essentially, which we forgot to talk about. We'll talk about the side plot. But like basically there is a character named Ferrodin who basically gets put as like a scribe to basically like keep the histories. And he is basically like, yo, like Leto's like, yo, you're going to sire Atreides heirs, but no one will know that it's you. And like, and he ends up Leto ends up starting his own breeding program similar to the Bene Gesserits, but it's even more comprehensive.
Yeah,
but well, see, that's like something in the books, and they just get rid of it because no, we can't have Leto be evil. Like no, like dude, Leto's doing like terrible shit to basically to like decentralize everything again, making things so stagnant that people yearn for chaos. Like it's fucked up. He's like, Leto is like, how do I put it? Leto is not a good person, but he's doing it for the right reason because he's trying to avoid something even worse.
Right. Yeah. This all sounds interesting.
But they get rid of it because they don't give a shit about the philosophical themes of Dune in this.
You know what they do with Leto in this series? Nothing.
Like,
I don't know why he's turning into a worm. I don't know why he's marrying his sister. Like, none of this, like, yeah, this was in the book, but why is it here? Like, why?
Like, I really hate when adaptations just like assume that you know shit like about like the thing, and it's like you need to explain this because otherwise you're not being a good movie. And honestly, I just think whoever like I think some of it was like part of it is the writing, but I think like the directors have like an influence over things too, and I 100% am like convinced because this wasn't an issue. Wait, because wasn't the writer of this also the director of the last miniseries?
So John Harrison wrote and directed the last miniseries all by himself. Like, he did the writing and he did the directing. Here, he just did the writing.
Yeah, and I really just have a feeling the director just cut a bunch of that shit.
Sure, yeah,
because
definitely.
There were things that were kind of off with the first one in terms of themes, but like it was still kind of there. With this one, it just was like, oh, I don't like these themes, which are like what make this whole thing so interesting. So we're just gonna like focus on the plots and like hope people don't notice. Like, and it takes away all of like what makes those books so good.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is that he's writing a screenplay for a miniseries that's combining two books. Like, we're doing both Messiah and Children of Dune. Like, that could not have been easy to like kind of combine the two. So like he was kind of shit out of luck. No matter how much of a fan he is of the original stories.
Honestly, they shouldn't
what do
have
you
done
do?
it as like 3 episodes. They probably just did it because the last one was 3 episodes. Because like Dune Messiah doesn't exactly have enough to how do I put it? It doesn't exactly have enough to like fill its own 3-episode miniseries.
Okay.
But at the same time, it was like way too much for just 1 episode.
Right.
And so like I feel like if they had done 2 for each, if it was like a 4-episode miniseries, I feel like that could have fixed a lot of issues. Ideally, they would have done 3 for Children of Dune, but Dune Messiah, I believe, is the shortest of the Dune books. So, like it's one of those things where it's like it makes sense why they shoved it all into 1 episode, but especially I think they could have fit it into 1 episode if they didn't keep shoving Children of Dune shit into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, like, oh my god, like, the fucking... Remember when they fucking, like, took an entire... airlifted an entire worm to another planet?
So,
like, oh my god.
Yeah, that was, like... Well, that's one of the most memorable parts of the series because it's so stupid.
Yeah, they don't do it in the book. They get sand trout because sand trout are, like, basically the beginning of, like, a worm life cycle.
Yeah.
Like, imagine them, like, tadpoles, but for worms.
Yeah.
But they all, like, collect to make one giant worm.
Imagine in the original Jurassic Park, Dennis Neiman was in charge of stealing a T-Rex as opposed to stealing the fucking can of shaving cream with all the embryos in it. Like, that's what this series does. It just goes right for the fucking dinosaur. It's like, no. The smarter thing to do would be a lot more subtle with it, but it's like, no, we gotta have a grand scene of them kidnapping a fucking worm, and then
it's like absolutely ridiculous.
And then I guess that comes back later, but like not really, because like it's not really told very well.
Yeah, because like it does kind of come back. It's kind of more of like a later thing though, because you know, people don't want Arrakis to have, like, the fucking spice monopoly anymore. But at the same time, they just did not do a good job setting it up or explaining anything in this.
Yeah,
like,
no,
it's...
definitely not.
I felt really bad watching it because I'm just sitting here, like, I don't know... I think I was just really happy someone was even adapting it.
Yeah.
Because when I was watching this, like 90% of the time, my face was in my hands, like, this is better in the book, and I was just like begging you guys to like the entire time. I was just like, guys, I swear the books aren't this bad. The books aren't this bad. I promise, it's so much better in the books.
Well, yeah, every time you were describing like something that happened in the book, like I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Like, let's talk about the fact that the Baron Harkonnen comes back in this series, even though he very much died in the last series. He comes back.
Yeah, because
Alia is so fucking powerful, her memories of the Baron Harkonnen essentially resurrect him as like this genetic memory that only she can see. So she's like possessed by this like very real memory of the Baron Harkonnen. Like, I know I'm probably not doing what actually happens justice by describing it that way, but because it's so fucking heady, like that's such a weird concept that like it's kind of hard to articulate.
Let me try to explain a little bit like what genetic memories are a little bit better. So you know, like the spice trance with the Reverend Mother, where the Reverend Mother gains the memory of all previous Reverend Mothers. Well, I like in the Dune world, like your genes have like, how do I put it? Like your genes can connect you to your ancestors essentially if you like do the spice trance. And when you're born as an abomination, you are born with those memories already inside you. And that's right before you even like develop your own sense of self. So it's really easy to become what's called abomination and get possessed by one of those memories. In the case of Leto and Ganima, they also have those issues, but since they're not taking spice as heavily as Alia is to try and recreate her brother's prescience, they don't have the same issues. Although there is a scene in the book where Leto and Ganima play what they call the mother-father game, where they summon the genetic memories of their parents and have them have a conversation, and Ganima almost doesn't come back.
Right.
and then and Leto like apologizes and is like, "Oh my god, I'm sorry. I did not think you would this would happen, and we won't play this game ever again." Because they used to play it a lot.
Right,
So
exactly.
it really is like interesting, and they don't really explain it well at all with
No,
this
they
series.
don't.
Like Alia is like such a sad character because she's dealing with like all this that because basically for context, sorry, we have not been explaining the plot very well, and I know
I
like
mean,
90% of the people don't actually like know anything about Messiah or Children of Dune, but
yeah.
at the end of Dune Messiah, Chani gives birth to the two twins, the children of Dune, if you will.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she dies, and basically Paul gets so distressed from everything that he just walks into the fucking desert and to die.
Mhm.
Because yeah, we really have not been explaining the story
I
very
mean,
well
but
because
like,
I've just been talking about things.
yeah,
So
but
I
no,
am
like,
sorry for people who are just completely lost and don't understand what I'm talking about.
but that's the frustrating thing with this series, though, is that like I don't even understand what happened because like it does such a terrible job at like explaining it. I will admit that maybe the fact that I was so lost is because I didn't have any previous adaptation to like judge it on. Like even though I've been saying I try to judge these series in a vacuum, like sometimes like it is hard to do that when I've seen previous versions already. So like this was a little harder for me to follow because I don't know the original Dune Messiah story or the original Children of Dune story. But even with that said, the series does such a terrible job at giving me context. Even though I'm going in completely blind, I have no
No,
idea what's happening.
no,
Like,
exactly. Like even when it came to me, like watching it, I'm just sitting here like, what
yeah,
the fuck are they doing?
yeah. Even you're confused, and you know the context.
Yeah,
So
it's like I'm
like,
sitting here trying to explain it to you guys, but the way that they're doing it is like so like it's just like it feels so different to what they were like what the book was that I'm
yeah.
just like, well, Jesse, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's so boring because like a lot of this, I mean, a lot of Dune, like from the versions I've seen, is people talking. Like it's not an action oriented series, but like it's still interesting when these people are talking. Whereas
Yeah.
here, it's nothing but people talking in such boring ways. And oh look, there's a scene where they kidnap a worm for no reason. Like
Yeah.
that's the series in my memory. Like that's what the series
They
is. It's just
kidnapped a
talking
worm.
and then they kidnap a fucking worm. Like it's
Yeah.
it's so boring. Like I genuinely, and again, this is when I say I don't like this series, I'm not saying like, oh, I hate Children of Dune as a story, because I don't know Children of Dune of the story
Yeah.
as a story because like I haven't read the books.
Honestly, I wouldn't even blame you for like hating it just off of this, honestly.
Well, it sounds
Um
interesting. Like it sounds like Frank Herbert really just went balls to the wall with these sequel books, which I kind of respect. Like he was trying stuff, and like it sounds like it was really interesting from the way you're describing it. I just haven't seen them done well because it's a fucking Children of Dune
yeah.
miniseries, and it's so boring, and like they're not these filmmakers are not willing to really dive into the craziness that Dune seems to be.
Yeah, and like that's why I'm so disappointed that I don't know if we'll ever get a Dune Messiah adaptation from Villeneuve.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we ever will. Like I
Right.
really want one.
Mm-hmm.
Like more than anything, I really want like at least the first 3 books to be adapted because I feel like overall it's just a really good like trilogy and story that's really tragic
Yeah.
and like thought provoking and timely, but it feels like every person that tries to do it just doesn't do it right, and like
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like anybody even wants to touch it.
Yeah, because like as you've been describing it, like a lot of these things sound really cool on paper, but like you know can they actually do it justice is the real question.
I feel like if someone can make Succession work, they could make like Messiah and Children of Dune work. Because because at the end of the day, it's really not about just people sitting around and talking, because like that's Oppenheimer. You just have to do it well and make it compelling, and that's what the books do.
Right.
So there's like and like it's not like it's all in like Paul's thoughts. Like he has like conversations with Chani about like that kind of shit. Like you could make a good adaptation of like the first 3 books, hands down. Sure. I believe that with all my heart. It's just people won't touch it, and I don't know why.
It's scary.
If anybody could do it right, I think Villeneuve could, and that's why I'm so devastated, because I really want a good adaptation so people can actually know what's next. Because let's be real, a lot of people aren't going to read a book. That's actually kind of why I love. There's a series of like an in-depth guide to Dune by a channel called Quinn's Ideas. That's actually how I first went through the Dune series, because I tend to not be a big reader myself. I usually listen to audiobooks. And it's a really in-depth summary that goes into like the themes and even like has excerpts of like the most iconic scenes. I highly recommend just looking, if you like Dune, but you're a little intimidated by going through all those books, to watch those videos, because they do the books justice. Like, it's not the same as reading them, like, but you're getting the general experience in a more condensed and digestible way for us people who have short attention spans.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm sure I'll check those out at some point. Maybe I'll read Children of Dune and Dune Messiah someday. I don't know. Like, I definitely want to know more eventually.
Yeah. I do highly recommend reading the books if you haven't. Definitely.
Yeah.
But I also understand books take time. That's why I like audiobooks. Like, I can do shit while I'm listening to audiobooks. One of my favorite things to do is I'll like play Splatoon and have an audiobook in the background.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if there's any positives that can come out of this specific adaptation of Children of Dune, it's that, okay, I can feel... I like hearing you like so frustrated while watching it. I'm like, okay, there's something special here. I just can't find it in this specific adaptation. So like, and I feel like that sucks, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, it helps you to appreciate like what was there before, you know? Like, I still appreciate the first miniseries we watched.
Yeah, even though I'm frustrated with Children of Dune, I appreciate that it exists. I appreciate that someone even attempted to do it. Because, like, a lot of people, even though it's, like, an unfortunate experience, that's probably going to be a fair amount of people's experience with the Dune sequels, at least they kind of get an idea of what it is, even though it's not, like, really the best idea.
I mean, from what I saw from, like, some reviews, like, some people do like this.
Yeah, some people do. When I originally watched it, I did like it, and I don't know why I did, but, like, I did. And I think some of it just comes from the fact that people just are happy that it exists.
Yeah.
It does some things right. It does a lot wrong. But in overall, like, I can understand why some people would have a soft spot for it regardless.
Sure. I mean, yeah, that's totally fine. I disagree. I'm going to be the asshole. Like, I'm going to be the complete asshole and say, I, honest to God, probably prefer the Lynch film over this series. Because, like...
Really?
I agree that, like, I think the Lynch film is a terrible adaptation of Dune. You know, I'm going at this of what would I rather watch again? And that would be, I would sooner watch the David Lynch film again over the
honestly,
miniseries.
I kind of agree. I kind of agree, because, like, At least when it comes to the Spice Diver cut.
Yeah, the Spice Diver cut.
In my case, I feel like if you had asked me before we watched it together, I would have been, oh yeah, I'm more than happy to watch it. Now that I've watched it after I've read the books, I've been like, I would just rather watch the Quinn's Ideas videos about the series, and I'll get like a better experience than if I watched this.
Well, that's the thing is, like, at least with David Lynch's movie, like, I got a lot of funny bad moments out of that.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, this series, I didn't get a ton of funny bad moments. Like,
yeah, it was
sometimes
like,
we had fun making fun of it. Like, there was that chili bowl guy who had like, the chili bowl around his face. But like, I don't know, just like nothing about it was funny bad to me. Like, it was just kind of tedious to get through. I'm glad I watched it. I'm glad we watched through it together. But like, it's just not something that's really sticking in my mind. Like I said, the most memorable parts to me are the scene when Leto's running like a roadrunner throughout the desert, and when they kidnap a worm.
Yeah.
Like, but they're not like those are not like highly esteemed hilarious scenes to me. Like, I just remember them because, well, something was happening in those scenes as opposed to every other scene where nothing was happening.
Yeah.
I was not a fan of this. But again, so like it is what it is. Like, that's the risk of watching new things. Sometimes you're not going to like things. I'm totally fine with the fact that we watched it. I'm glad we watched it. Just so that I could
same.
like get an idea of, like, you know, different versions of the Dune miniseries experience. I mean, we literally Duned for a week. We were Dune all week. It was part
great.
of it.
Yeah,
it was great.
I had so much fun like sharing these with you guys because like, Children of Dune was something I discovered as an adult. Again, like the Dune miniseries was like my childhood like thing. So it's like, and it was like one of those things that like just like nobody but me seems to know about.
Yeah. So I will say I do have the Children of Dune miniseries on DVD. It's a less than impressive looking DVD because, like, literally, so like the special edition of the Frank Herbert's Dune is like this. It's kind of like a book. Like, you can like go through like the pages of discs. Like, that's really cool. Here, the Children of Dune miniseries is just a standard DVD case. And then the poster on the front, like the cover of it, is just, it's just awful. Like, it's James McAvoy's face like taking up the majority of the poster, and like you get some floating heads of like Susan Sarandon and Alec Newman, but like, and also I'm just noticing James McAvoy's name is not on the cover, and yet his face is the biggest one out of all of them. It's like, huh? Like, I get that like this was made at a time when James McAvoy was not as big a name as he is now, like, because this was 2003. This predates like X-Men First Class and Chronicles of Narnia and stuff like that, but apparently he still gets like the biggest head out of all of them. But he doesn't get like top billing. I don't know, man. This is a very weird DVD. But I'm not keeping it in the collection. This is not something I want to keep.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, and whether I probably will never watch this series again. I do not care. Like I said, I will gladly watch the regular Dune miniseries. Like, that I would love to watch that again. But Children of Dune, if I ever consume Children of Dune or Dune Messiah, it would either be through the books or through the videos you recommended, or maybe someday they'll actually make it a faithful adaptation.
Every day I pray that there is a God, and that God really likes Dune Messiah.
You pray to the worm god.
Yeah. Blessed be Shai Hulud.
Yeah.
Bless the maker and his waters.
Well, Puff, is there anything else you have to say about Children of Dune?
It's I feel like everything that I've said about it, like, I feel like we skipped over a ton of shit, but like, honestly, like, I don't think people want me to just do a point by point recap of like the series in this. And so I'm just gonna apologize if you feel lost and you're just like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Watch the videos I've recommended, and you'll get the general idea of like why I'm frustrated.
Yeah, watch the videos. If you're genuinely curious, I guess check out the series because they're also uploaded to YouTube. But you're really not, unless you're like a massive Dune head. But even then, like Puff's a massive Dune head, and they got also nothing out of this.
I feel like well, when I first watched it, I did get something out of it, and I honestly feel like if you're a huge Dune head, you should just watch it regardless. Because what you've already watched the David Lynch Dune, you might as well go all the way. So So like if you're like a casual like fan of Dune, and you're like oh, I liked the miniseries, and I think that's neat. But you're not like, oh my god, I fucking love Dune. Like I wouldn't recommend checking it out. You're not going to get what you should be getting out of it.
Yeah. Well, the good news is we at least did one episode this year in 2023 on a couple of series, which is good. That's something I kind of want to do moving forward, is like have at least one episode per year beyond like a couple of series, because last year I did Stranger Things. So this year we did the Dune miniseries.
Yay!
So, good for us. Good job. I think that's going to do it today though, Puff, because we don't really have any more Dune things to talk about.
Not until March.
Not until March at the very least. That's when we'll get to the Villeneuve films.
Yay!
Yeah, I'm looking forward to those. Well,
I am looking forward to Dune Part 2 so bad.
Yeah. We haven't seen Dune Part 2. Maybe it'll be a gigantic piece of shit. We don't know.
I doubt it. Like, dude, I have full faith in it. Like, there's, with how good the first part was, even though it's very like bare bones and like it's so weird, but we'll get to it. But like at the same time, like I have full faith that he's going to do it justice, and that's going to be very good. And if it's 3 hours long, I'll be fine. Just give us an intermission, please.
Yeah, just let me Dune for 3 hours.
Let me Dune for 3 hours, and then give me like 15 minutes to Dune my business.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's in the future. But for right now, Puff, please shout out your stuff. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at OneToughPuff. I also have a YouTube channel where I make music and shit. So, sorry, I don't actually do media analysis as a main thing. I'm like,
well, that's why you're here. That's why you're on this podcast.
Yeah, this is my hobby, because I'm too lazy to make video essays. Yeah. But
links will be in the description.
Links will be in the description.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Puff, for making me Dune all week.
This was fun. Thank you for actually watching this.
Yeah, no, I'm glad we watched through these. I'm glad we Duned. But yeah, thanks for coming on. And thank you, the listener, for listening to this podcast. If you want to support the show, give a like, give a comment. Listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or on YouTube. That's fine too. Doesn't matter. But yeah, thanks for listening, and please watch Stripper Magician.
Yes.
Please, for the love of God, look up Stripper Magician.
God bless Stripper Magician.
I'll even play Stripper Magician as the outro song right now. I won't play my usual outro song. All right, Stripper Magician now.
Stripper Magician, a wonderful addition to parties and funerals, also police suspicion. I think there's something shiny behind your ear. I can also make your daughter's virginity disappear. Take a look at my magic stick. It makes dreams come true with just one lick. Flick. Pulling out these scarves like I pull out of your daughter. I'm a magic man, a real Harry Potter.
Choo-choo.